Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out on a Monday evening to join us. This is our first event as an association, so welcome to HEC Sports Insight. We're the brand new association on campus for all things related to the sports business. And we're really excited to host you all and to, of course, host our chief guest, Nicolas Julia, one of France's most notable startup founders at the moment. And of course, we'll delve deeply into his story. But if we could just start with a big round of applause, that would be amazing. And personally, I'm Hanu. I'm the founder and president of the association, along with a few of my other members who are sitting on the front row here. And that's Luca. Luca, would you like to introduce?
Hi, everyone. I'm the head of conference of HEC Sports Insight, which I've joined 2 months ago after its creation. And it's a pleasure to have Nicolas Julia for our first guest for our first conference today. And I want to thank you to come here in such a rainy day in Paris, all the way to Jouy-en-Josas.
Thank you guys for having me, and I'm very excited to be with you, try to answer all the questions you have.
Yeah. So first, before I think we start the conference and delve deeper into the questions we have, I think it's best to give the audience an introduction to Nicolas. So Nicolas is a man of many hats, and please feel free to correct us and add on to anything that we say. Nicolas studied at EM Lyon before joining Eurogroup as a consultant. In around 2010, he worked there for 4 years and then launched his first venture as a founder called La Javanesse, which is an AI-based B2B solutions provider. A few years after that, in 2016, Nicolas joined Stratum, a fintech which uses blockchain to streamline business processes, particularly for large organizations. And 2 years later, he co-founded Sorare, which is, of course, the company which we're going to focus on in the conference and the place where he is currently the CEO. So Nicolas, of course, there's a lot that we can say about Sorare personally, but I think you're much better prepared at pitching and introducing us to Sorare. So if you could, in your own words, introduce the company to those of us that might not be familiar with it, please feel free, and then we can tell them more, and then we can dive right into our questions.
Yeah, so if I put it very simply, so it's a platform where you have... Can you hear me properly? Because it looks like it's breaking. But so it's a mix between two things. One, collecting in the digital era. So basically, you can buy and sell, so trade cards representing athletes. That's one pillar of what we do. There's a marketplace where you can buy and sell these cards. And then we have a gaming component on top of it. So not only you can collect and trade these cards, but you can also play with them. So you can compose teams. And your performance as a gamer is based on the performance of the players. Right, so the better the players do on the pitch, the better you do as a manager, as a user. So that's what we do. So we all human beings have been collecting for centuries, right? Different sort of things. And so we got started by seeing a new technology, so blockchain, NFTs, that are unlocking the act of collecting on the web. So this is a technology that enables that enables authenticating and securing something digital. So bringing digital property to the world. So that's what got us excited with my co-founder. How can we apply this to collecting and to sports gaming? So that's why we started. And as I said, then we introduced a gaming layer on top of it for fans to engage not only with the act of collecting, but also of playing. So that's a high-level overview of what we're doing. And maybe to add something, everything we do is officially licensed. So from the first day, we decided to partner with the biggest sports leagues in the world. So now it's more than 300 partners, so teams on the platform. So that's the biggest portfolio of partners in the world of gaming. So we have the Premier League, the NBA, the MLB, La Liga, and most of the top sports leagues that are partners to us. Most of them are investors in the company as well, so that we can build lasting relationships.
Maybe to go back on the origins of Sorare, how did the initial concept come to your mind, especially in terms of fan engagement in sports? And how did you think? What did you inspire? What inspired you to have like Web3 and NFTs integration into sports and fan engagement into sports?
Yeah. So back in 2015, I decided to bet my career on crypto. As you were saying, I joined a company, like one of the very few in the space, and so I was fascinated by Bitcoin first, and the fact that it's bringing an alternative to traditional finance and banks. And when diving a little bit more about, okay, what is this technology bringing to the world? I was stuck with the fact that actually it's digital property, and the fact that you can own something digital. So money is the use case for Bitcoin, and I was thinking about things outside of money, and I was looking at things that people are obsessed with in the real world. I'm a big sports fan, and so I wanted to build something that resonates to me and that I can relate to, so that it helps with the early iterations of building the product. So that's how I got started with the realization that if that use case was sticking with money, it could stick with other goods, and with the fact that also the market potential was massive. Of course, it was very, very niche back in the days. It still is as of today, but if you look at it from a market potential, there's like millions of people collecting things in the physical world. I believe there will be way more in the digital world, because it's way easier to trade, it's way easier to keep, it's way easier to show. There are many benefits that come with that technology and the fact to own something digital, and we are adding this layer on top. So to answer your question more directly, my first realization was, okay, there's a new technology unlocking a new market that could be massive, and there's something to build at the intersection of a vertical that I love, which is sport, and then like just starting to draft the early versions of the product and see the reaction from the early adopters, the fans. I think that's what built the confidence and the passion, because it was very positive.
To understand a bit more, at the beginning, you just were a collectible firm, let's say, and then you switched to add like the layer game, if I'm correct?
So yeah, I mean, all this happened like in a matter of weeks actually, because back in 19, when we were iterating on the early prototype, we had the marketplace, and the game was happening basically on Discord. So like from the very first weeks, we were asking teams to post the URL of their cards, and from there we were computing the results manually and see if there was an interest for like a gaming layer on top of what we were doing. So it was a cheap way to validate interest for this. So yeah, it took a few months to integrate it within the platform, basically.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, and I think that's a great introduction to the company. And I think one thing that's super impressive about Sorare is I think now you're in your 7th year of operations. And as we've said, the company has been very successful across multiple funding rounds. So the question that I sort of have is, over the past few years, we've seen a lot of companies come up in this space where they're interacting with, let's say, football or sports, creating an air of sort of tradability or sort of a stock market or whatever. But these companies are not able to sustain themselves either as a business or in terms of fan engagement. So what is it about Sorare specifically that makes it stand out both as a business and also for the user as something that people keep coming back to? Of course, the sport element is a big element of that because it's so repeatable. But is there something else that you think stands out?
I think there's many different things. I think the first one is that we tried not to chase short-term speculation and trying to. So we've been accelerated by the hype in 21 and 22, but we never had a token. We never built our own blockchain. We always try to stay from like this short-term grid that most of the time can bring companies to very difficult places in many fronts. I think that's probably one of the reasons. And the second reason is probably the fact that we are tapping into behaviors that have been existing for like decades or centuries. One is as I said, like the trading and collectible angle. Like people want to be rewarded for their passion through trading, scouting, and so on. Collecting as well, and the second one is gaming and fantasy sports, which is like just in Europe there's 20 million people that are playing fantasy games. So this is a behavior that has been existing for a long time, and that we will grow over time as well.
Another question. One of the unique particularities of Sorare is to have partnerships with football leagues. I think you have like the 5 biggest European leagues and even the MLS, if I'm not wrong. You have a partnership with the NBA that you recently reinforced, I think, at the NBA Paris games. You have a partnership with the MLB. How do you pitch Sorare to these federations? What can you bring to them?
Yeah, it has been a very important part of what we've been building, and I've been on the ground like for the first few years. So that's the B2B aspect of our business, and so I spent a lot of time in the early days doing that. And the pitch always has been the same. Number one, we're going to help you build a new revenue stream. So short term, we're going to bring revenue in the form of royalties. Long term, through equity value. So that's one. Number two, and it works a little better for smaller leagues. We're going to help you grow your audience by bringing new fans watching your sport. And number three, build an engagement tool for your existing fans, so a cool product that you don't want or cannot build internally. So there have been the 3 big reasons. Number one, like the revenue, new revenue stream is even more important in the last few years, as you may have seen, like the TV rights, they reach kind of a ceiling, you know, in terms of where they can go. So all the top leagues, and it's not not just in Europe, like you can see that with the NBA, the NFL as well, they are trying to develop new commercial opportunities, and so we are a great way for them to do that.
And could you please take us through the first partnership that you signed? I think it was with the Belgian Federation, Football Federation, if I'm correct.
Belgian League, yeah, the Belgian League. Yeah, no, that was so. In the early days, you need to grind, you know, so you need to do stuff that are not in the books. You need to be very persistent, and so that one. So basically, I was reaching out to I built a pipeline of like many different leagues, and so for the Belgian league, basically I was reaching out to an intern on LinkedIn, and because I could not get to, you know, it's a small office, it's 3 or 4 people back in the days, like the CEO and few people below him. And so the intern basically told me that yes, like maybe we can have a call with the legal officer, which is also the commercial officer, which is also like a few different things. And I said like, okay, let's do that. And so instead of taking the call, of course, I took the train and I went down. And so they were very surprised to see me, you know, like they told me, we never seen that, like someone like coming to see us in our office, all that. So like half the job was done just by showing up in person, you know, and so then I did the pitch. The product was not existing yet. It was late 18. And so yeah, did the pitch to them, then managed to get in front of the CEO a few weeks after, and close the first small deal on basically our personal money as founders, my co-founder and I. And so that was the beginning of something. Then we started to prove initial traction with them and a few small clubs. And then like the virtuous cycle was started.
Until the tipping point. And talking about tipping point, when did you see the tipping point in terms of user adoption? And where did you realize that you really had a huge success?
So it's going to be a disappointing answer because I haven't seen that. What we've seen is what I was looking for, and if you listen from like B2C founders in the Valley in particular, like of like massive companies, they all tell you that they are not looking for in the early days for like massive scale. They are an average interest. They are looking for passion, but deep passion for a small group of people, and then replicate and week over week grow from there. And so, to me, like from the very first calls I had with potential users that I manually found on Discord, like seeing the passion they had about just this idea, this concept, and the fact that they were willing for me to take the money even before like my cards were on the marketplace and so on. Like that was the validating point that give us like lots of energy to build, and then seeing the reaction was like really like the one thing. And still to date, you know, even you know, the community is of course much more demanding, and like there's people that are like not always happy and all that. But that's the thing, like the love that people put on the product that bring me the more energy above all.
Thank you.
And I think going back to what you said about your partnerships now, let's say with the NBA and with all of these leagues, you mentioned that there's an element of equity as well that takes place in perhaps with these leagues.
Yep.
And you also have a lot of star founders and sort of ambassadors amongst your names, the likes of Kylian Mbappe, Lionel Messi, Zinedine Zidane. And a lot of these athletes now have a foot in business themselves as well. So is that sort of model of making your ambassadors also, let's say, shareholders or partners with you, is that something that transitions on the athlete level as well? Or is that something that's only reserved for, let's say, leagues and right holders?
No, it's the exact same thing, actually. So we had athletes that invested in the platform and helped us in many different ways. So the first one was Gérard Piqué, was instrumental to help us strike the first couple of deals and open a few doors in football. Serena Williams was another one a bit later in the journey, and she was like instrumental to close the deals in the US. Like she was literally sitting with me to negotiate with the NBA, and so that's like again, yet another example of an athlete helping from his or her investor position to on the business side, on the B2B side of things. Others have been more helpful to provide feedback on the product. Antoine Griezmann, even before becoming an investor, was like a big player on the platform, very vocal, and you know, like sharing lots of feedback with me. And so that's another angle. With Kylian, we've done a marketing campaign that will be followed by many others, and so we have more a B2C, more mainstream angle that we're going to develop in the coming years. So depends on their interests, the way they want to help, and their interest in the product. Yeah.
And then I think going to the next thing, which was you mentioned that it's not a company which chases short-term validation, as we saw with, you know, people starting blockchains around football themselves or things like that. But of course, I think when you started off the company, it coincided with a big boom in talks about Web3, NFTs, and all of that. And that industry has seen a lot of cycles over the years. So how do you think interest in the product has wavered with these sort of ups and downs? And what have you sort of done to make sure that your platform sort of remains immune to it and fits in meaningfully into, let's say, fan engagement or the future of sport itself?
Yeah, so we had different phases, right? Like, so we had the first, let's say, the first 2 years, 19 and 20, was the building. We are building the product with a small community, very high retention, engagement numbers, and then we started to have like the hyper growth, like starting 21 and lasting until 22, with lots of capital coming from the crypto markets, notably, but not only that, like lots of speculation. So then 23, we had to adjust the model for a world that was like kind of slowing down in terms of crypto attention in general, and so we've done that by adjusting the gameplay of the product, and that has been proven successful in 24 when we launched a new version of our gameplay. So yeah, I think you need to adjust, and we've been accelerating in 21 and 22. Now we have a model that is much more sustainable and scalable, even if the price of the cards are not as expensive as it used to be, which unfortunately like is difficult for like some people who paid these prices back in the days, but it's much more sustainable and scalable for us as a business.
Yeah, another question on the Web3 and NFT landscape right now. I think it's fair to assess that today sports is witnessing a new paradigm in how consumers are consuming sports. And where do you see the Web3 and the NFTs fitting in this new paradigm? Do you think they're going to be essential to this new paradigm in fan engagement?
So first, I think that sports is going to be a big winner in the decades to come when it comes to entertainment. Like it's going to be probably one of the very few way to entertain yourself that is not scripted, where you're going to have surprise and delight based on things that happen in the real world, and so that's my bet for the future of sports and sports entertainment. When it comes to technology in particular, I mean, as many verticals like sports as a category, there has been lots of bullshit use cases at the intersection of crypto and sports, NFT and sports, like lots of things that are like very short-sighted. Unfortunately, that was hard for the space and for people building for the long term. Like that needs to be said. To me, I see crypto and NFTs as a tool, as a technology. Like, and what needs to be looked at is what you mentioned in the first place. Like attention spans are decreasing. Like people have less time, less attention. So you need to build products that cater to a new world where people are not willing to spend like 2 hours in front of a game. So how do you build like something for like a behavior that is changing, right? So I think that's what matters the most. And then like crypto and NFTs in particular could be a fit for some of these use cases. And it's up to you to invent them.
Yeah, really exciting for us. To go back a little bit, we want to talk about Sorare last funding round, because Sorare hit the headlines in 2021 and 2022 for euro 680 million funding round, which is the largest European Series B ever. So first, congrats. Could you take us through these these several funding rounds, and in particular this record funding round?
Yeah.
How did you raise this amount of money?
So we I raised money in very different configurations. Like our pre-seed round in 2019, like nobody wanted to talk about crypto, sports, NFTs. Like it was very hard. Same for the seed. Then got hotter late 20 for the Series A. So basically, it's so for the Series B in particular, because your question is about the Series B. I always try to put the company in a place where we are raising money when we don't need to raise money. So it's a comfortable position to be in, and trying to build competition from different firms by running a very tight and competitive process. So that's what I've been doing in particular for the Series B. So the outcome of it was to have different term sheets, which drives valuation up, which allow you to raise more capital, which allows you to build a war chest to give you visibility for a very long period of time, because I knew that what was happening was was not going to last, and we needed to build a war chest for the very long term. And the last point maybe is that we needed a lot of capital to buy the rights, because the competition was very tight, in particular in the US, and I wanted to win not only in Europe but also in the US, where lots of gaming companies and DFS companies like DraftKings and FanDuel were bidding for the rights we were trying to get, and so we need to have the power to win.
To get the rights. So
yeah.
the uses of these funds were first getting the rights, and do you still have these funds? I imagine that now that you have raised some astronomical amounts, you have the luxury to adapt your strategy, and you have the luxury to not be pressed by money.
Yeah. So we of course we put some of them at use to buy these rights. We also renegotiated 24 months after some of these rights, because we pay for some of them in 22 when the competition was very hard and the market was like totally crazy. So we renegotiated actually most of them by a meaningful amount, which allow us to be in a position right now which is comfortable, and to see the long term from a comfortable position. Yeah.
speaking about the current landscape, you raised these amounts in a bit of the Web3 frenzy in 2021, 2022. It was a post-pandemic boom. Tech valuations were soaring. Today is not the case. The focus of investors has shifted towards AI, which is kind of taking all the spotlight.
Yeah.
What do you think, what is your opinion on the Web3 landscape today from an investor point of view? Do you think the spotlight is going to go back to the Web3, or is it just going to go back to a normal level, let's say?
I mean, I think it's. I mean, the conversation is like the crypto is very much still in the conversation in VC world in the US. I think France is a bit more like divided into it, and maybe the deal flow is not also in a place where like VCs can like split their attention between the new AI wave and other stuff. But I wouldn't say that crypto is absent from the VC funding conversation in the US in particular. And like going forward, I don't know. I don't have the crystal ball. Like what I have always tried to do is like not. I think trying to catch a wave as an entrepreneur or even a potential employee is risky. So I try to follow my drive, my passion, and that's the only advice I have for people trying to start something new in the tech world.
As you say today, I think crypto is booming, especially Bitcoin. In the past year, Donald Trump election has significantly helped the Bitcoin share price. But however, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like blockchain applications, especially for example metaverse, NFTs, are maybe less trendy.
Yeah, that's true.
How do you explain this difference?
Look, I think that there are a few different use cases. I think, if you look at the market cap for digital assets in general, it's more than 3 trillion. So I think there's some form of validation there. So there are Bitcoin, of course, which is like a massive use case. You also have, and needs to be said, like there's lots of speculation and short-term speculation around meme coins, which is like the theme right now. Like, do I believe in this long-term? No, like I think it's probably not going to last. So I think it's like I'm more interested in like looking at companies or products that try to abstract the technology, but map a behavior, like something user love, rather than like seeing like if that specific technology or use of the technology is gonna last. So yeah, metaverse, for instance, we haven't seen good products, right? Like so that's as easy as that. And for NFTs in particular, I think there's still use cases that will gain relevancy in the long term, in art in particular. In sports, of course, we will keep on pushing and pushing big. And probably there will be others. I think also that regulation is going to play a big role. So you may have followed, but in France, we have a new framework for Web3 gaming that has been voted recently. And so this framework, so the decrees are going to be proclaimed in a few months. So this is something that I know lots of bigger gaming companies have been waiting for, because they don't have the same tolerance to risk that we have as entrepreneurs or startups. And so I know that a few projects will take off thanks to that in France and then probably in Europe. The political context in the US and how the Trump administration is going to relax regulation on crypto in general. So yeah, I think that's going to probably act also as a way to push bigger organizations to launch or to release games.
Thanks.
And I think that's a good overview of the Web3 industry, but I think the sports industry itself, I think if people say that they're slightly pessimistic about Web3 on a global scale, I think the sports industry in the past few years has emerged sort of as an asset class of its own. Although that's mostly with sports teams and leagues and organizations, I think it's fair to say that anyone working around sports, whether it's in apparel or technology or gaming, is also seeing a phase of optimism where there's a lot of private equity, venture capital coming into it. So how do you see the market for, let's say, businesses or new startups in sports evolving from that perspective over now and also the next few years?
It depends a bit on the use cases, but I think there's massive potential everywhere. Like if you're trying to build like a B2B use case, like sport is still in its infancy in terms of how the industry is structured. So there are plenty of opportunities to help the leagues, to help the team to be more efficient. So one great example from entrepreneurs coming out of France is Scoreplay, which is a company that I've been lucky to invest in, that is like helping these leagues, these teams to manage their media, the media assets. And then when it comes to entertainment and B2C use cases, and that has been part of my thesis also when funding Sorare, I think there are very little very good products to entertain fans that has been underserved as an industry. So I think there's massive potential as well. And in a world of entertainment that's going to be more and more scripted, as I was saying just before, I think sports is going to be the one thing that's going to reserve surprise, delight to consumers, and so I believe that that's going to keep on growing. I think there's been a bubble on media rights for a variety of factors, but the industry as a whole has lots of potential going forward, and there's lots of innovation as well. That's maybe is going to be my last point on this one. So some of the leagues in Europe in particular are a bit too conservative, but you have innovators pushing the boundaries. So you have the Kings League, which is a good example. I'm not sure we can call it football or soccer, right? But like they are taking existing rules and they are trying to look at this problem that we were discussing of, okay, attention span is declining, people are getting bored of looking at the games. What can we do to change that by leveraging also streamers, which is a very smart play from Piqué and his team. Sorry. So there's innovation and value is going to come most probably also from these leagues reinventing their sports.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And then where do you see Sorare fitting into this sort of development that we're going to see over the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years? And particularly with regards to, let's say, you've made a big push on American sports in the past few years, especially with, baseball, basketball. So in that sort of next phase of Sorare, are there any other sports or are there any other markets that you want to take on, whether they're in the US, Asia, Europe, anywhere else?
So as I was saying in the beginning, like I just consider that we are day one, like we are still like a niche product compared to the scale I want to bring this company. So like the goal remains very simple. Like we want to onboard way more users. So we built a studio internally recently. We are publishing way more content. So just this month, we produced 200 videos, reaching like dozens of millions of views. So we want to muscle significantly our top of funnel and then convert users through mechanisms that are way simpler, like packs of free counts, for instance, from the leagues that they love, and so basically start playing in a way that is much more direct than what we've seen in the past. And we want to integrate a social layer to the platform as well. So these are like 3 important projects that we are working on internally. And a bit longer term, we want to leverage independent teams to build side games and experiences to leverage the cards so that the creativity is not limited to our team, but to the creativity of basically the world of third-party studios around us, right? So that's another strategic angle that we are executing on.
And I think the community element is super interesting that you mentioned, because anytime you're on Twitter or Facebook or anywhere, I think if you go down the social media of any team, you can see a lot of Sorare fans that are discussing, teams and the players that they have in their team. And I think the company's also done a great job in the sort of influencers and marketing campaigns that it chooses, creating a very sort of authentic push for, that gets people interested in the company. So can you talk us through a little bit about how because I watched one of your podcasts, and I think up until the 2022 World Cup, you had done no marketing whatsoever. And I think that was the first campaign. So how how today do you go about marketing, and where does the sort of community itself fit into that?
Yeah, so I always I was a big believer in like trying to have community-driven marketing. So push for referral, word of mouth, push for influencer, like help influencers to spread the word and try to grow your audience and community through them. So that has been a very important driver for us. And like ads in the old sense are not working that much anymore. So even now that we are starting to scale our paid marketing efforts, like the type of content that is working is authentic content, right? Like, so basically you take content from people that love your product and you push it, like being influencers, affiliates, and so on. So yeah, I'm a big believer in community-driven marketing, and that's actually like the strategy that we're executing on.
And on a personal level, I think we've talked about the ups and downs the company has been through. But as a founder, how has your approach and your sort of insights and vision into the business changed as a founder over the past few years, as the company has scaled and now it has offices in multiple countries? So what learnings and in what way do you think you've changed as a leader and as a founder of a business during that time?
I think that as a CEO, your role evolves, and so you need to grow every 6 months to adjust to the needs of the company and the scale of the company, and so that's demanding. You need to be open to feedback from users first, of course, but also from your board, from your peers, and so on, and be in this growth mindset all the time. And at the same time, the 3 big things that the CEO needs to do remain the same. You need to set the direction, the strategy, and make sure that you're executing at the right level on the strategy, number 1. Number 2, you need to hire the best and keep them. And so you need to be constantly looking for the best talents. And number 3, you need your company to have the resources and the finances in particular to execute with your people on your strategy. So those 3 things remain the same, but then like the needs again of the company and the organization change, evolve. So you need to grow as a CEO. And so on my end, what I learned to spend more time on is structuring the org, the processes, and so on, which is something, as an entrepreneur, you don't have lots of love in the beginning. You want to build product, you want to ship product, you want to do a bit of marketing. But then when you grow past 10, 50, 100 people, you realize that it's very, very important, like to spend time like building your leadership team, building your organization, building your processes and all that. And so this is something that I spent more and more time the last 2 years, and that that's very important for the company.
That makes sense.
Outside of work, what do you like to do?
So I'm lucky to have 3 kids. So I love to spend time with them, and that has been a core part of my time outside of work. I don't like to say outside of work because I see my time as life, and work is part of it. There's no work, work and not work, and so I can not work on a Monday afternoon and work a full Sunday. But yeah, the big blocks are the kids, the family. It's very important to spend time a bit for yourself. So I try to do a bit of sport every week, and I walk a lot because there's no secret. Like you need to, and yeah, that's it. I spend also time business-wise investing, even if I'm doing that less than during a certain moment in my career, but I spend some time doing that, which is helpful to stay connected to what's going on. And yeah, that's enough for now.
You talked about ScorePlay, which is a startup founded by HEC alumni. Do you have any other companies in mind that maybe you've invested in that are for you that are going to be a huge success for you in the future years?
I don't know if you send me your pitch deck after this, like maybe I will do something.
Not yet. It's gonna come.
I hope so. No, I don't. I don't have a look at the moment. No, to be more precise on my investing activities, I've been investing a bit, and ScorePlay is a bit of an outlier because when I was doing that, I was more of a yes machine, like and so I stopped at some point because I was saying yes to too many entrepreneurs, and so I decided more to invest in funds that are like knowing their jobs and doing that way better than I was doing. So right now in sports, let me think.
But forced to be in sports can be another.
Oh, in other areas, no. But like if we stick to sports, I think there are like what the Kings League is doing is amazing. Like the growth is really just insane. I think they're gonna go probably to other sports, and there are other attempts to disrupt other sports. So the trend of new leagues, I'm very interested in. Because this is something that failed during the last decades, but it's not because something has failed during like 30, 40 years that it's not going to stick at some point. There's a timing component to it, and yeah, I think something huge we'll get out of this in the decade to come. So I don't have like something specific, but I believe that certain leagues have become a bit too comfortable, and they will be moved by new entrepreneurs.
You talked about the innovative idea of Piqué to bring streamers on the Kings League. We've seen in other sports, particularly boxing, for example, a huge boom in influencer-driven combats. Yeah. For example, I'm thinking about the Jake Paul Tyson Fury game. Yeah. What is your take on that? Do you think influencers, streamers are going to be a big part of sports or a new engagement in sports?
No, it's interesting. I think that right now, from what I understand, like most of the growth, okay, if we take the Kings League and like all these other initiatives, like it's limited to the communities of these influencers. So what we meant to be seen is like, oh, you get out of this and grow out of these communities. But definitely there's like it's like the lines are getting blurred between them, and it's going to be interesting to follow.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting that you mentioned the Kings League, and now you also have Baller League coming up, and we're reaching a sort of point where there's a lot of these. And another thing that you mentioned is that traditional football or traditional sports have perhaps become too comfortable in their place, and they're not innovative enough. So on one side, you have people like Florentino Perez saying that, football is dying and we need this and that, we need a super league and so on. On the other side, there's people that are saying that, no, we need football to be, let's say, more competitive and more traditional in a sense. So what do you think traditional sports, and I guess specifically football, need to do to remain innovative, to compete with these new forms of media and sport that are coming up?
Partner with Sorare?
with or without Sorare, where do you think these sort of sports, traditional leagues, even the League One, which is in a mess right now because of media rights, how do you think they can innovate and compete with these new properties?
I think they should start by doing something very simple, which is listening to their users and the fans. And I think when you look at the leadership of certain leagues, when you look at the profile of people running the stuff, like I think you can doubt about their ability to listen to what people want, and it's as simple as that. So I can do like big analysis and all that, but at the end of the day, like you need to be connected to people watching your stuff and understand what they need. And so if they behave a change, you need to adjust, and you need to do it in a risky way. In particular, if you're not the leader. So if you take football that you were mentioning, if you're not the Premier League, every time I'm seeing like people at Bundesliga, La Liga, and so on, like why the fuck are you like do crazy things? Like, what do you have to lose? You know, like so, and yeah, they are. I think that it's a bit slow for them to change. You know, like some of the rules, some of the like the way they stream. You know, their tone of voice, their brand, all this. So, so again, like start with your users, your fans, and the behaviors that are changing. I think that's at the end of the day the only thing that matters.
Let's dive further into entrepreneurship in France and Europe. As I said earlier to you before the conference, I attended your conference at the Sport Definition event, which was organized by BPI France and EY in June, 6 months ago. And you said, I quote, "France has all the assets to become a leader in the sports business. Let's not be afraid to dream big." Elaborating on this, a lot is said about the startup culture in Europe, and most of it's critical. And you are a success story, and you perhaps have another opinion, and you showed us during this conference that you have another opinion. Where do you think France and Europe stand in terms of competitiveness, and where do you think it can improve?
I think it became easier and easier to start a business in France, and I think it's a great place to start. Like there's different initiatives from the state to help you get started that I'm sure you know. So I think France is a great place to start. It's a good place to hire talents in the engineering side. I think you can access amazing talent for level of salaries that are like okay compared to many other locations in the world. I think that is from regulation perspective improving, but still a bit marked by the European mindset, which is a bit relying too much on protecting and regulating, and probably on the areas that needs to improve. It's something, and it's probably the most difficult. It's the kind of the mindset of okay, when you come with a new idea or something a bit crazy, like by default, you know, you're gonna see doubt, or like people would look at everything that can go wrong. While when you spend time in the US, of course, like people are looking at everything that can go right. And most of the companies will die, but people will learn and do something else. Whereas in France, like France, you are looked at from a different perspective, and when you fail, you are pointed in a way that is very different from other countries. It's not only in France. I guess this is something that is relevant in other countries in Europe. So I think that's that's hard to change. So needs like more lots of success and public figures and storytelling and yeah, the direction is good, but there's still like some effort to be made on that front.
Good to know.
Yeah, and I guess this is our sort of last formal question that we have. Let's say you were among the audience today and as a student and you really wanted to, let's say, build a startup or a project in sport. What are some sectors or some places where you think there's a gap or something that you think is feasible from that point, aside of the industry, a market, whatever, where you think a really good startup can be built, something that's perhaps, piqued your interest as well?
I think that you need to follow your drive and passion, because it's going to be so hard that if you are not deeply passionate about what you're doing, it's going to be very hard. So that's why I had to point at markets, use cases, or stuff like this, because it can lead to success, but not as massive as someone who's driven by like a vision, a passion that's going to help go through the ups and the downs of the life of the business.
That's fair. I think, Luca, you have any other questions?
I'm okay, thank you. The audience, do you have any questions for Nicolas? And if you want, we're gonna give you the micro.
So first of all, thank you very much for your interview.
It's a pleasure.
I had a more generalist question. It was about you told us about the importance of building a leadership team in startups, and my question is a little bit around these subjects. It's what do you think were the main steps or challenges for you to international your business? Like, and also, when is a good time for a startup to go international? Thank you.
So, is your question related to hiring someone who's going to help us bring the product outside of France? Is that your question? Like the first part of the question?
No, more generally, like what are the main challenges to do so?
Okay. So for us, from the first day, I tried to build a product that could be understood globally without a need to localize market by market, right? And so sport is amazing for that. Not all sports, but a lot of sports are known globally. So football is a great example of that. And so if you pick a sport that is known globally, if you add on top of it a behavior that is democratized globally, you make your life way easier. And so if you take our example, like collecting is something that people have been doing for a long time. Playing fantasy sports is also very well known in the US, in Europe, not in Asia, which is one of the reasons why we're not pushing there. But if you do that, your life becomes easier. So that's from a product standpoint. From a market standpoint, it's a bit different because the news cycle is different in the UK. Even if you take the same sport, say football, like the news cycle is slightly different from the one in France, in Germany, in the US. So here it's important to have small groups of people, like a marketer, copywriter, social media specialist, that is ideally in the country, or at least is native and can speak to that audience with their language and with like being integrated with the news of the day, right? Like which is again slightly different. So this is something that we've started to be doing over the last 6 months, and that's proving very efficient for us because before we were like one language, one communication. It was not very efficient to go deep to penetrate certain markets. So that's the first part of my answer, and the second part of my so you asked about when is the good time to do it. So the good time to do it is when you have some form of validation on your product market fit. So you need to find a niche that is like where you laser focused, right? So you pick one user persona, one demographic, one geography in particular, like be obsessed about them and try to improve on whatever metric you pick to reach your market fit, and then expand from there. And expansion could be in the same geography or not, but that's very, very specific to the business you would build. So I don't have an answer that can fit all the cases.
All right, thank you very much.
Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk with us today. Kind of throughout the talk, you've spoken a lot about community and the fact that you want to keep the community element very strong within the user base of Sorare. Especially, you spoke briefly about bringing in a social element onto the platform. I was just wondering how that would take shape and how you kind of merge away from traditional communications platforms in order to integrate socially onto your platform itself, and how retain that user base using service.
So your question is like, how do I bring a social layer into the platform?
Exactly. Like
Okay.
Yeah.
No, so there are different layers to that. The first is kind of basic. It's like basically you have, like I have many friends on Sorare, like playing Sorare. I want to know what they are doing. Like I want to know the last trade. I want to know like what they've been doing during the last game week. How they score well. Or no. I want to be able maybe to to send them a message, a joke, like to bash them a little bit. Like I want to be able to interact with people in the platform. Like they are not really visible. So that's kind of table stakes. And so we're going to introduce that. Then you have a second layer, which could be playing with your friends. And so we are looking at features where you can play with them and increase your success if you collaborate with them. So that's more from a gameplay perspective. And then you can also imagine ways where we're going to integrate within the platform content from the outside, notably. Could be from streamers or other type of content that we want our users to access from the app. So that's another third layer that we are looking at. Hopefully that answers your question.
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
I think there's another one.
Hi, Nicolas. Thank you for your presentation. A more specific question about the marketplace of Sorare. Do you offer liquidity to people who purchase cards on the game? And if you do, how do you set the trading price of each card?
So that's an easy one because it's forbidden by the law. So we cannot do that by liquidity. I mean, like me offering a card at a certain price.
Yeah, like instantly. Let's say I want to exit and sell my card on the.
Yeah, no, that's something that we are not allowed to do in France, even in Europe. So unfortunately, that's not something that we can offer. Yeah, there are like actors in the marketplace that are doing that. So basically, they will buy your card at a specific price, but they are external actors. We as a marketplace operator, we cannot do that.
So if someone wants to exchange a card to another user, then he needs to put the price at which he wants to sell, and someone needs to accept it, and that's how it works.
Exactly. So let's say you want to sell your card at a specific price, you can list it on the market at the price that you want. If you want to sell fast, you would put yourself at the floor price or just under in order to sell rapidly. But you can also directly ping or make offers to there are certain traders on the marketplace that you can contact, and they would offer you like a quote or like a price. They can, for instance, buy a bundle of cards, right? For instance. So that's something you can do as well.
Okay, thanks.
Just to interject there, given that it's a P2P transaction, is there any fee that Sorare takes between the transactions to account for let's say, the blockchain's processing, or is it entirely feeless?
Yeah, so on the secondary market, so when there's a trade between, we are taking a 5% commission on that transaction. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, I think that wraps it up for the conference. Nicolas, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Sure.
Really honored to have you as our first ever guest for a physical conference, and we wish you all the very best for Sorare and for all of your future endeavors. And after this, if anyone wants to just come and have a chat with Nicolas informally, please feel free to do so. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great evening.
Thank you so much.